Good morning. Today is Saturday. It was supposed to be a nice day today. It's raining off and on. So today was a day of mixed plans. I could have gone fishing, but with the level of rain in the area over the week, the river where I would have gone fishing is high, so that's not really workable today. I got up and it was initially sunny. I got up here and it's like off and on rain. It's not even like consistent rain. It's off and on. So I just threw on the rain poncho and I made the trip. I'm here. So screw Mother Nature. I'm going to just be a diehard and get done what I can. There is some stuff to cover from the point of discussion in the vlog today, so we'll do that. Let's just get going and get into it, and we'll see where we are at the end. Come on along and all that good stuff, and thanks as always. I'll apologize in advance if the lens gets all rainy. It's a day of off and on rain that this part of the country gets this time of the year. It's warm, but, well, warmish. It's about mid-40s, but it's also wet. So I'm out in the woods because I can't go fishing. We already covered that. So let's move into some comedic Facebook drama that happened this week. It's kind of a repeat, though, because although I am behind schedule in my uploading of videos, as it's not the main thing that I do with my life, I posted a video, I don't know if it's up yet, but it basically tells the tale of my encounter with a Bigfoot group and page called, if I remember right, it's called Bigfoot Peepers, which sounds lame and funny in its own right. It's basically some lonely guy who is basically posting pictures of his stick structures. And if you read my rant on Facebook yesterday, you kind of get an idea of how I feel about stick structures. Not that I've never mentioned that before, but just to go through a quick review, he didn't like having people ask him, did you ever stop and think that maybe this is something a whole lot more mundane? And ended up having the conniption fit of a 5-year-old and closing his group because he basically was taking some constructive criticism. These are not the reactions of a functional adult in adult society. This is not somebody who adults well. So this week we fast forward to about, I'm going to say, a month and 2 weeks later, and we encountered Bigfoot structures. And the same exact thing happened again. Apparently this is an ongoing thing in a subset of the Bigfoot community that basically are a bunch of whiny little, fragile little crybabies that can't handle the fact that not everybody sees their fantasy world bullshit for what it is. Or what they want it to be. And they'll call you out and say, you ever stop and think that maybe nature did that, by way of gravity, or maybe people did it? And who would go and do that? I don't know. Hunters, bushcrafters, kids building a fort in the woods, random debris thrown out by trail maintainers, or any one of a number of other things that are not Bigfoot. Is it really that hard? But these people, being the fragile little souls that they are people, get out of here, fucking bugs. The other reality I can see mosquitoes flying about. The new reality of the warmer months, bugs, yay. But they can't handle the fact that somebody might not agree with them. To the point of like actual comedy. So yesterday it took the form of somebody who posted literally, let me find, since we're out here. So the interesting thing too is this guy had the fun and the sense to call me an armchair researcher. So as I'm out here in my Barco lounger, so this is as good an example as any. This right here, he posted a picture of basically the equivalent of this and called it a Bigfoot attributed structure. And I'm like, no, that looks like deadfall. To which he responded in all caps by saying, I'll never post here again. Okay, well, sorry, but Bullshit is bullshit does, and what you posted is bullshit, so shut up and grow a fucking set, or just go cry under your bed and suck your thumb or something. I am kind of done with the grifting, delusional, freaking wootard bullshit of this freaking subject. I mean, I know to the mainstream of society, it is a thing where, you know, you're thinking, okay, well, we don't take it seriously. And you're right, most people don't take this seriously. However, the thing is, you have people out there, believe it or not, that actually do look at this from a science-y point of view and consider the possibilities, because as much as I will call bullshit very quickly, and I've gotten to a point in my cynical old age that I'm going to do that, and I just don't have time for the white noise anymore, summed up. But looks like the beavers over there put some new work on there. That one too, actually. The funny thing being, I've never actually seen the beavers that live in this pond. I've seen one in Vermont. They're actually, for the amount of beaver related activity, like that tree over there. It's old activity, but you can see that they're in here. I don't see them that often. Okay, back to the crybabies. So they do that, and I mean, granted, when I was given the inevitable blowback of, so first of all, you'll get, well, why are you here if you don't believe? Like, because you invited me. I don't even remember being in this group, which basically means at some point in the past, they sent out a blanket. They made their little group and they made a blanket invite. And if you did this at a certain time period in Facebook, you just get dumped in the group. And if you don't really pay attention as diligently, like, I mean, I'm a member of a myriad of groups on a myriad of subjects. So if somebody dumps me in one and I miss it, so be it. And all of a sudden you'll get a pickup in the activity, and all of a sudden I see, okay, Bigfoot structures. Why am I seeing? Oh, I must have joined this at some point, or been basically group napped and dumped into it. So okay, whatever. But the thing, so my observations about this odd little phenomenon with the stick structure whiners, the stick structure crybabies, the little whiny little bitches who just can't take this thing called reality, and their patron saint, because I would not be completely within my due diligence if I didn't at least take a cheap shot at a certain Mr. Noel at least once per video. He is, of course, the one who wrote the patron saint Bible on stick structures. It's I want to say it's like 106 pages of just pictures of this kind of stuff. And he makes no effort to lend context to what he thinks it means. What were the Bigfoot people telling us when they made this elaborate little random pile of sticks? But which just goes to show that he's just like taking pictures and he's feeding into this little fantasy world bullshit thing. And the point is, I mean, if you look around in this immediate area, yes, you see a lot of deadfall. You know what's doing that? You see that? You see the motion right there? Do you see the wind? It's calmer than it normally is today, than it is often 3 seasons or out of 4 during the year when you get high winds through here. And you get wind coupled with a damaged population of trees from things like ash borers and other wood-boring insects. And this is the kind of stuff that the people don't like to hear in these little groups, because science points out that there's a multitude of things that can happen on a mundane, everyday basis. Because if you learn a little bit about forestry and how the actual underlying ecology of a forest system works, then you understand there's more going on than you realize. What ash borers and related little pests do is they come into a tree like that and they'll eat the inside, the pulp layer that's at the very center of it. And the tree on the outside looks perfectly normal until you get a high wind in here. And what that pulp area does is give the tree some elasticity. With that gone, you get enough pressure, enough stress on a solid, rigid object, the thing is going to break. Then you get that kind of shit. That kind of shit. that kind of shit off in the distance. You see my point. It can be snow load, it can be wind, it can be a combination of all of the above. In some cases out here, you also have a timber harvest because you have people trying to salvage the damaged trees because they're going to fucking die anyway, pardon my French. And there's more going on out here, and it really, if you do want to actually study this subject, you need to delve into the parallel subjects in order to have all the variables on the board so you know what's going on. That's what research actually is, and yes, there is some science to it, and some people may find that tedious, but it is part of the process that we call research. And you're either willing to do that part or not. So also, I think I mentioned this in a different video, but it's not out yet, so I'm going to mention it again because it amuses the hell out of me. I went back and looked, and I did verify. There's a guy in the coalition who, aside from the fact they see me literally under their beds for things that I didn't even have awareness of, one guy actually proclaimed that he thought I was dead. So I'll just ask the audience here on camera, do I sound dead to you? Brains. Apparently I'm a zombie. Okay. If I showed you a picture of the, I'm not even going to be nice about this, of the twat who said this of me, who, if I showed you my block list on Facebook, you'd see his name in that column easily 17, 18 times. He just keeps claiming that his account is hacked, and he'll make another pod count. I can't even call it a sock puppet because he actually uses his real name. He's got at least 20 of these so far. And how many times you got to block somebody who's just a toxic little pain in the rear before they go away for good? I mean, it's an ongoing chore. So, but he declared me dead. I'm not dead. Sorry. For those of you who might wish me dead, sorry, not so far. And let's see what else is going on. The thoughts that I have regarding the first part in the tree, the stick pile nonsense. Pardon me. This is also the time of year when my allergies are less than cooperative, so I may make nasal sounding noises that I'll apologize for in advance, like that little naggy cough. This is going to be one of those rants, I guess, where I kind of delve between the lines of Bigfooting and mental health. Notice I went right there. It makes for an interesting mental picture, the fragility of the people who post their little pictures of these stick piles, and it would be fascinating to see what somebody would make of all this complexity right here, but it's just a random friggin' tree, as is that one, and those, etc. So, or that thing that looks like a dumped old Christmas tree. Anyway, the point is, there's your obligatory moose crap right there. Now I feel like the day is whole. The circumstances are why, how, what is the condition they have that is just so fragile? What is the separation from reality they have going on where they need this? It's like an escapism of some kind, almost. And I guess it's common to a point in other manifestations. So Dr. Mike is putting out his flashcard psychology non-degree in non-psychology, as I have absolutely no credentials in this field. I'm just kind of like talking out of my ass, but this is probably something fairly common, and people have various degrees of severity to it. But I'm standing right under a tree. You shouldn't do that. That's poor form. They, in this case, find each other on Facebook and feed off each other's, I'll be nice and call it a belief system, but it's like, there's not a single picture in existence going back to when I first encountered this stick structure thing, whereas you have like a massive amount of mushrooms and things right here, getting into the naturalistic forestry observations again, those being very common, as there's a whole nother bunch right there. And I don't think they're edible, and I'm not going to find out. And these people they feed off this belief, but there's not been a single supporting, even blurry photograph. And even with generative AI now in the mix, I haven't seen a picture of them doing that there either. It's just messed up. So I don't know. There's probably other groups out there like that too, and the flagship group for stuff like this, Bigfoot Believers, is one where they're about on par with Matthew Johnson's culty little Zorth and the extra-dimensional nonsensicalness of all of that are the norm. And if I ever got joined to that group, and I probably would have noticed by now if I was, because they are a large enough group that they generate enough regular noise, they'd be in my feed, and I haven't seen them, so I'm guessing I'm not, which is probably for the better. I ain't got time for that. Trying to navigate through the least swampy parts of this given the rain. As much as I would love to get the drone in the air, when you see the treetops going like that, if you get the drone up past a certain height, the wind is high enough, it's going to take it and do unpleasant things to it, so not really going to work. But with mental health and Bigfoot, there are people that actually have a genuine interest, and they're like outdoorsy people. I'd probably throw myself into this category, but other people that actually go out and they have some knowledge of the outdoors, and they know how to differentiate between what is and what isn't, what might be, what might not be. These are the people I find more in common with than the ones that are just, oh, look, sticks. Yep, those are sticks. But you get, there are, and here's the thing, when I say stick structures are bullshit, I mean 99.99% of them are bullshit. Because you'll have people that then take it too far, and they're just posting pictures of stuff like this or over there. Random deadfall, a pile like that. You know where that came from? That came from up there, and it fell down. And if you had, actually, you would literally need to have like grounds crews of Big Feet out here arranging the sticks for the amount of volume of deadfall related debris that you have out here. Yet people find the sticks and they never actually see the Bigfoot doing it. Why? Because they're not. Why? Because the woods are not teeming with big feats, because if they were, we wouldn't be looking for them so diligently still this late in the game. This is just simple common sense. And granted, I'll say sense, because common sense isn't common. There are too many Nimrods out there doing stupid stuff in the world to prove me wrong. There's a whole side rant I'm tempted to go into that's completely non-Bigfoot related. That has more to do with social media and all that. Notice I'm out here in the woods and I don't bother anyone. We'll touch upon that in the next segment because I want to wrap up my thought with this. So, this week in Facebook Bigfooting, you had the false declaration of my demise. I'm curious what the actual potential legality of that is. If it was meant, I mean, the guy who did this in passing, so it's probably no harm, no foul, just him looking stupid. But what is the legality of somebody actually falsely declaring you as dead just for the point of causing you, if nothing else, the grief of having to like put your hand like, hey, no, I'm right here, I'm still among us, so sorry, but you know, you may hate me that much, but I'm still here, unfortunately. So, and if you're doing it for sinister purposes, the key thing you do is you get me to sign the life insurance policy before you whack, before you whack me, as opposed to after, because they don't retroactively honor such things as that. Just to let you know. But we're moving into a semi-rambling phase now. I've made my point. There's a weird-ass looking tree. That's why I like this stretch of the woods, because you have these old, gnarly, New England-y looking trees. And I dare say if you were to wander around this at night in the dark, that would probably look spooky as hell. I mean, this time of year when you have just enough damp, cool air for like a foggy effect in here, that still looks spooky as hell. Or at least eerie. You get into the eerie end of it. But at the end of the day, these people really do need to grow the fuck up. They might even need to get some mental help. I mean, there's a certain element of people that end up in this subject, and I dare say they probably delve over into UFOs and some other things too. Where does the level of escapism that you're applying to the subject get to the point where it's not just like amusingly charming, to the point where it's like, you might want to talk to a doctor or someone? That is where I'm going to leave this, because actually one more point. I kind of toyed with the idea of starting a Facebook group that's semi-satirical, semi-serious, looking into the actual interactions between mental health and bigfooting. And I kind of struggle with whether I should or I shouldn't, because mental health is a touchy, sensitive subject. And if you do it satirically, and it would be really hard not to. The trouble with this is that the insensitivity that could be attributed to it is going to be counterproductive to the actual message intended. Because, I mean, myself, nobody is completely free of mental health now that it's more in the open. It's out in the open as a subject. Before it was kind of a taboo subject, but it's less so now. And I mean, I have a minor form of OCD that isn't like quirk level as far as I'm concerned, but I also have the occasional bout of claustrophobia and some resulting PTSD from it. So, I mean, I'm not immune myself. Mine is more infrequent. So, fortunately for me, I don't have to deal with this on a daily basis. The lock jiggling shit I do every day is a coping mechanism for something. I don't know, but it doesn't freaking make me incapable of functioning through my day, so it is what it is. I probably will not make this group out of just like the sensitivity angle probably outweighing some things. In the meantime, however, I do feel the need for a segment break, so I'm going to let you go for now, and we'll come back with another subject. Taking a break from bigfooting, but you might find it comical, so we'll be back in a bit. Guess it's colder than I thought, because the last bout of wind, and it was probably wind and rain, which was enough to drive off the geese that were over there making a racket in between things. Of course, they don't do it while I'm on camera, where you can have you enjoy that too, but they were there briefly, and then they got interrupted by the sleet. The last bout of rain was actually not even freaking liquid. It was like coming down in little pellets, and then switched back to rain. So it's like it's that weird day when it is colder than it feels, but it's not just enough to form rudimentary sleet, but not actual snow. And being midway through April, the white devil that is winter can kiss my ass and move on to peddle its papers elsewhere. like up in the Arctic where you do that normally. Anyway, rant number 2, and this is nothing Bigfoot related. This is just amusement from YouTube. I don't know how many people are familiar with the wacky and sometimes cartoonish world of First Amendment auditors. Who are... So first we'll tackle it from their version of events. They are the people that go out and will typically audit, and they started out auditing the police out in public when they are doing police stuff, for lack of a better term, and they will engage with the police and see if they respect their Fourth and Fifth Amendment rights and all this. Some of them are better than others. Others are, well, we'll cover them in a minute. And in theory, what they're doing is they go out and they are testing to see if the cops respect their First Amendment rights and don't demand ID or want to search them and all this other shit, despite the fact that you are engaging in an interaction with them that you have provoked. First observation to be had. By contrast, I'll take my own example. I am somebody who lives in a town and near another town where the police forces of the two towns are collectively fairly community friendly. And I go about my business 24/7, 365, and the last time I dealt with a cop in any way of direct interaction was effectively where I didn't have somebody say good morning at a local Cumbies where we're both probably getting a cup of coffee in the morning, was when my engine died in my car, and it was more of a distressed motorist kind of thing, and the guy came up and did his thing, and it really was no big deal. Because what happened? My engine died. Can you move it? If I do, the engine will catch on fire. Oh, I'm kind of waiting for the tow truck. So they kind of sat there and they did their thing, and part of their SOP, which is standard operating procedure. Hey, look, Bigfoot stuff. No, I'm kidding. Anyway, they they took my license registration and ran that, and they wanted to see if I'm an axe murderer from New Jersey or something, which I'm not. So the tow truck came and we got the car dealt with and all that, and honestly, that's all it was. That's all it needed to be. But these people go forth and they seek out police interactions, and some of them are better than others. On the higher end, you'll have people, and I'm not going, some people might mention audit to audit or audit the audit, but he is not a actual auditor. He is a reactor to audit related content. It's not exactly the same thing, although he's kind of the pinnacle of what this kind of thing should be. Because unlike some people who clearly hate cops in all way, shape, or form, this guy actually is he's pretty impartial, and sometimes he'll say the cops are completely in the wrong, and other times he'll be like, okay, nobody here was really right or wrong. I can see their points at 1, 2, and 5, and then on 4, 6, and 7, this guy probably could have done better. But I mean, he's an honest guy with an impartiality that is respectable. And of all the channels like this, he's probably the most interesting. On the far extreme, you have people like Chili DeCastro, who is currently serving 6 months in jail for obstruction, which is a really stupid fucking thing to be doing 6 months for, but I've actually seen the interaction where it happened and all his lovely conduct in court. And if you don't know who he is, I encourage you, if you're curious at all, to go and look him up, and you'll laugh your ass off for just like how to guarantee at some point you're going to get arrested, because this is a person who is the epitome of somebody who goes wandering around with his camera anywhere he goes, basically to harass police and then dare them to arrest him. And he has been arrested many a time, but this time he went too far. And I guess the local law enforcement got a little bored with his antics because he's going away for half a year. And there's been some funny videos lately where he is trying to appeal. I've done nothing wrong and all this woe is me. But the thing about him and his buddies of his ilk, and ilk is never a good word to use, it brings us to the term frauditor. And frauditor is basically, these guys are... They'll get in trouble, they'll get in jail, and then they'll basically try to use a GoFundMe or something to get out of jail. So they're grifting people out of money. That's where I have an issue with them. There other stuff, I mean, you're a product of your own stupid because you're interfering with police business. And quite literally yesterday I saw an example video, somebody who is the student of this guy, and the gist of it, to save you from having to suffer through listening to this guy's never-ending circular banter, if you're they're on the same par, not necessarily the same animal, but they're on the same par as sovereign citizens who are the cause of their own problems too, just slightly differently. This guy comes upon a, it's always embarrassing just as an observation if you get arrested in front of a Dollar General, just saying. But this guy was going by on a bike and sees a routine traffic stop, calls the cop over. At this point, had he just not done anything, the cop didn't even know he was there. So he calls the cop over. The minute the cop gets anywhere near him and said, well, yeah, what can I help you with? Which is literally all the cop did. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of law enforcement, and you see me like just defending this cop. The guy immediately goes into camera hog mode and get away from me, and you're violating this and that. He gets hyper aggressive with the guy. As the cop stands there looking at him in utter confusion, like, dude, you called me over. What can I help you with? And literally this goes on for 5-10 minutes before, like, the guy then immediately tries to leave after engaging with a cop who is more confused for most of this time than not. And this genius ends up getting arrested for obstruction, which he's brazenly guilty of, if I'm being perfectly blunt. I'm trying to find a spot where my boots aren't soaking through the swampy goodness that is all this, that if you can get if I don't know if there's like a shine or something on the ground, you can see that. But this is the epitome of what a frauditor is, and that's kind of like the highlight of today's secondary non-Bigfoot related content. What a frauditor is, from their standpoint, they will go out and they have their cameras and they are streaming their interactions with various government agencies. Although that's a load of crap, because I've seen some of them go from bothering the police to bothering the public library to bothering the post office. One guy was brazenly violating the shit out of HIPAA and FSMA, which, if you don't know, is the federal government equivalent of HIPAA, at a VA hospital. And having worked at a VA hospital, the areas the guy was going into and the fact that he's snooping over a patient's personal paperwork, you are violating HIPAA and you could be arrested for that. And probably, I didn't see that whole video. I hope to God the guy did get arrested, because as somebody who did work for a VA hospital, you were completely in the wrong. And the initial interaction he had with a VA policeman, who, by the way, is actually federal law enforcement, just so you are educated to that, I thought the cop was being way too nice to him. He should have just thrown the guy out on his ass and let the patients get on with their business in peace. Same thing yesterday. There was a guy bothering a mental hospital, and he was like, he didn't get in because it's a locked ward more likely than not, but he did. He was like bothering the security guard, who was like, you could tell he was annoyed as hell, but this guy just wasn't going to take no for an answer. And he's looking inside, and this is a mental health problem. This is a mental health place with people that are dealing with mental health issues. And if it sounds like I'm insensitive, I'm not, because now I'm defending these folks. They're patients in a hospital, and they have a right to privacy, and you're looking in the window and like just, you're invading what is effectively their safe space. And there's, I talk a lot about mental health, and largely just because it's an area of interest of mine. And also I mention a lot of what goes on in a psych ward. So just to clear things up with a disclaimer, no, I have never been in a psych ward as a patient. So for anyone, and I'm talking to the false reporter of my demise, probably more than anyone else. No, I've never been a mental patient in a mental health facility. I think I've talked before about the one time I was given a less than voluntary psych eval thanks to my college roommate wanting to try to get me to move out. Now, thoroughly vacating that subject for a minute, because we have this example right here. Bigfoot did not do this. You can literally see where this tree fell down, bent this little tree over, and it's now sandwiched between that and the larger tree here. Looks kind of weird and gnarly. Nature literally did this, and you can see why. All the way through. in slow-mo. There you go. Back to mental health and frauditors. Anyway, so I have been in a mental hospital from the sake of doing my job at the VA, because part of that is there is a psych ward, and it is a proper lockdown psych ward, psych unit. And yes, I was in there for the purpose of doing my job, which is a pain in the ass in a psych ward from the standpoint that your card key does not buzz you in or out because it's a locked ward and you have to have them do it. War story for another time. I may have already told it, but be on good terms with the staff, because they can keep you in there against your will to try to get your way for stuff, and basically what is more extortion. And that has happened to me. I won't mention her name for liability purposes, but there is a nurse there that honestly needs a beating. And I'm sorry if that sounds mean, but you don't freaking falsely imprison people in a psych ward because you didn't get your way. Moving on. The other time I actually volunteered for a study for the normal group for a hoarding study. So the people involved were hoarders, and then you have the normal control, what they call the control group. So I have been in there, but for a disclaimer, those are my experiences with the mental health system. Not as a patient. Once I was working there as an IT person, so you go in and you fix computers and all that stuff. The other time I went in because I thought I was helping the greater part of humanity by doing some hoarding study. And it was an interesting experience. I don't know if I would do it again, but it was interesting, and I thought I was helping people, so all good. And I made $50 doing it, so. There's your deer pellets. Back to frauditors. So frauditors are basically people that have, from their standpoint, they think they're making sure the government is serving our interests and First Amendment, this, that, and the other thing. But they frequently get into trouble because what they frequently do is they don't understand, despite the fact that a government facility is, in theory, publicly owned, as in paid for by your tax dollars, and that part's probably correct. There are secure areas like the mental hospital or parts of the VA hospital where if you have somebody having open heart surgery, you can't have some random asshole come off the street and put his little freaking camera down the gut hole that you have going on at the time. There are obviously limitations to the interactions you can have in a facility like that. And there was another time where they went into the post office. I think at one point they went into a bank. So now you don't want people like having some jackass with a camera looking over your shoulder at your personal financial information for obvious identity theft related concerns and things of this nature. One guy literally was outside a friggin' Walmart harassing people coming out of a Walmart. I can't remember if he got arrested, but this is an asshole that basically at one point was harassing a guy outside his own store. And when the guy tried to move him along on his way, the other asshole that was harassing him basically maced him. And the cops, I have to criticize the cops in this video because they came over and they took sides with the guy who maced him. Like, no, that's assault and battery. You cuff him and you take him to jail and you put him in jail for a year so that he learns his lesson. And these are things where people of this nature, they need to understand what the potential penalties for what they're doing are. The guy who got arrested for obstructing the cop, actually, I take that back. They didn't get him for obstruction. They got him for disorderly conduct, which, at least in the nutmeg state, if you're enough of an obnoxious prick about it and you get the maximum penalty, you can go away, not for 6 months, but for 3 months anyway. That's a really dumb thing to be sitting in jail for 3 months for. The amount of damage to your life done by a 3-month jail stay, is it worth it? I don't think it is. But like I said, I mean, in terms of dealing with police, I don't really deal with them that often because I don't really do anything that requires their attention. And without going into a whole my every interaction with police, I mean, 9 times, if I had to do a, going back to like 1990 something, 8 out of 10 of my interactions with somebody with a badge have been either bland or positive, with the other negative interactions being basically a very much in the minority, and God forbid the sun comes right now. This is a lot more pleasant suddenly when it is. And number 2, no arrest. No, I mean, I have been abused by the police. I'm not going to lie to you. It has happened on occasion, but never was I arrested, and it was completely on them. And what the one person who did it to a degree that was unfathomable did end up getting transferred to another location where he was better suited for being a hyper-aggressive, tyrannical asshole. I'll go into that another time. I'm not going to deal with that now because that's not the subject at hand. Frauditors are basically, in my opinion, free-range trolls who are basically going about and taking advantage of the fact that you have easy access to video cameras, and they're going out and doing their live streams. They're basically out there harassing the public is what they're doing in some way, shape, or form. You have, they call them frauditors, but these are not. They're a slightly different variation on the theme. The people, I don't know if you're familiar with the Johnny Somali situation, but he's a guy who got arrested and then thrown out of and deported from Japan, and basically for going out and being the worst representation of an ugly American tourist that he could. And currently having misadventures in Israel the same way. And with everything going on in Israel, this probably is not the place to do that. You're as a largely vocal, obvious, non-discreet American in that part of the world, you are making yourself a target, and you're going to get yourself in trouble. By comparison, there's another guy who was basically just filming in an area where he wasn't allowed to in Dubai, a Muslim country, where he and his girlfriend are walking around. The girlfriend was dressed, I won't go into detail, but suffice to say the girlfriend was dressed in a manner not befitting of somebody who is visiting a Muslim majority country. And that is a cornerstone example of somebody who, if you're going to go to a country where you're not in the same government/cultural norms that you're used to, it really is on you to know what their rules are so that you don't run afoul of them. Otherwise, solely your fault. Ignorance is no excuse and all that. And some people were saying this guy was faking it because it was a matter that he was doing it for clout, because that is a lot of what he does, but which is going to segue into a different rant, but we'll do that for a minute. And if you want to say okay boomer to that, fine, fuck you in advance. But the tone of this guy and his girl were such that I think that they're legitimately in some doo-doo in Dubai, because the tone of the cops were such that, no, you're coming with us. And the tone from these two were very much like, normally this guy is full of bravado, and I think this time the guy realized that he was in a situation where he was very much not in control, and there was a little bit of fear in his voice. So I think, so the thing of the matter is, if you go to a Muslim country as a tourist, you don't fuck around, because number one, Muslim people are very long and hard and very, 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 very much into hospitality, but their laws are not our laws, and they don't put up with certain things. And off the top of my head, if you are a female, you dress modestly. This guy's girlfriend was not dressed modestly. I mean, she is dressed typical for a girl in her 20s here, going out to a nightclub, but the length of her skirt versus what's okay or not okay in a country of a different cultural model, probably not okay. She's probably going to get a charge for public lewdness just for that alone, because that's not their standard. If you go to certain countries and you don't want to wear a headscarf or something like that, don't go to those countries, because there, I mean, if you go to Saudi Arabia and you're a female, you better be ready to be modest and not drink, because that's the law over there. And agree with it or not, I'm digressing from my original subject. So you have Johnny Somali, who is the uber asshole version of this kind of a thing. Currently, last I knew, not that I follow this religiously, but he was being investigated by either the IDF or their equivalent of Israeli police, and he is about to serve. He might well be about to serve as an educational model for what happens if you fuck around in Israel. Will they lock him up? Will they? He's already claiming he's had a conversation with them where they basically threatened him, and it sounded to me like they were trying to scare him straight. But they basically made it very clear, we're more than happy to take you into a room, turn off all the cameras, and have a chat with you there as they crack their knuckles, if you know what I mean. Which is a veiled way of saying, we're more than happy to work you over. And this guy just doesn't know when to stop. The situation in Dubai, they're probably in jail. The scary one, there was some guy, and this is just a guy that does like travel related content. He's not really obnoxious, but he went to Haiti. And this guy basically got kidnapped he was going to go and interview one of the head gang leaders for Haiti, with that place being a complete war zone right now. And the rival gang kidnapped him and currently has him being held for ransom. So you go to dangerous places, you put yourself in danger, you may find yourself in a dangerous situation, cause and effect. And I can kind of feel for that guy, because he went there to do some edgy journalism. But then you have the frauditor guys that are claiming, well, I'm a journalist. You're not a journalist, you're an asshole with a camera, and it's not the same thing. You don't have people from Channel 3 following me around and harassing me as I go about my daily business. That's not journalism. And I mean that, like when you see the guy who's out in front of the public library, or he's harassing people coming out of Walmart, or they were coming out of a Nordstrom, and another one that he did. All you're doing is harassing the public. Stop it. And the guy that harassed the people in Walmart, and the guy that, they're the same guy, but he did that and all that. He's been arrested, as much that I've seen directly, at least 3 times. Is the clout, and that's where I'm going to wrap up this completely non-Bigfoot related subject. What they're doing is chasing what they call clout. Views. Thumbs up. It's a freaking goddamn thumbs up emoji on Facebook and social media. What is it worth? Well, if you monetize your channel, I guess it generates revenue at some point. But how much are you actually generating? Because karma being a very real and palpable force in the world, at some point you play too much, and silly games, silly prizes, and all that. And like the guy in Dubai, this guy has done all kinds of cartoonish shit over the course of his little time on YouTube. I'm not going to call it a career, because that's not what it is. And then he went to Dubai and he farted around, and what he did was just, he's filming in an area where he's not supposed to. And even as they're walking them to the police station, one of his idiot friends still has a camera on, after the lady officers that are apprehending them make it very clear in no uncertain terms, turn all the damn cameras off now. That was their tone. And this guy still had a camera going, and like, you're provoking these people way above and beyond where this needs to go. And from some travel related stuff I've read, there are certain countries over there where they're like, we are sick and tired of wealthy Western brats coming over here and acting like they own the place. So there's probably an attitude in local police where they're going to make an example of people that fall into that category. So if you go over there, don't play games, because you're not, like, being from America does not give you a get out of jail free card in a lot of countries. In a lot of countries, it makes you a target. And on a semi-related note also, this is knowledge I know. I forget if the country specifically is Morocco, Tunisia, or Algeria, but they have a law where you cannot fly a drone at all. So knowing the law, here's a little travel advice just being thrown out on general knowledge. If you are going to these countries for whatever reason, leave the drone at home. If you're lucky, they'll confiscate it at the airport. If you're actually caught using it, you will be arrested. And again, you are in a Muslim majority country and they don't like Americans necessarily. They're not going to cut you any slack as an American, so don't go there. If you're lucky, they'll just deport you and ban you from the country after a massive fine. But the dude and his girlfriend are likely still in jail, so good luck with that. I have ranted enough about this. I'm going to take another segment break and consider whether or not I need to discuss anything else. I'm going to do a sweep over here by the pond and take a gander at any new beaver add-ons to their beaver mounds and look for some material or anything else where you might have had someone come down for a drink and leave sign. As I'm on my segment break, and we'll take things from there. So we will potentially be back in a bit to wrap things up.